Well, hey there. You've stumbled upon the intersection of internet quandaries and psychological insight. Welcome to Veritas Views on AITA, where the quirks of the internet meet the expertise of Veritas Psychology Partners.
Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Gayle MacBride, and I'm joined by our dynamic duo of psychologists.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gayle MacBride, and today with me is Dr. Daniel Kessler, psychologist and partner. Hey, good to see you.
Hey, how you doing?
I feel like it's been a minute.
Yeah.
This is unusual for us.
It's Sunday, which means podcast day.
It is. Which
So
I'm excited
here we are.
about.
And I'm gonna,
Just because the fans at home are paying attention.
just because the fans at home are paying attention, we got a message back in our mailbag. Thank you so much. One of our many listeners sent us a message that said, "Hey, your lamp looks like it's fallen off the desk." It wasn't. But it was a little off, so we moved it over, and it reminded me that I need to turn my lamps on.
Wonderful.
So looking forward, Michael, you have an interesting conundrum for Dr. MacBride and I to puzzle through, don't you?
Yeah, but I also want to point out, that's the kind of fan service that we offer. If you point something out, we'll fix it. So
if you reach out to us, we will respond because we care about what our listeners have to say.
Yeah, well, welcome both of you. For any of the newbies out there, if you don't know what Am I the Asshole is, in short, someone posts a scenario and asks readers, who's the asshole here? And that's what we're going to help to determine. When there are identifiable information in the post, we've changed those to make them a little bit more anonymous and discreet. And if you're new, stick around through the end to make sure that you can catch the bonus conversation, which is, I don't know, it could be wide ranging. It could be about something in the office. It could be about a favorite book, or last time we did recipes recently. I don't know.
Michael, it's always an insight into the personal world that people don't always get with a therapist.
That's true.
And while we're not your therapist, those to our listeners, but people sometimes have curiosities about the lives of therapists outside of the therapy office. So there's our glimpse, your inside glimpse.
Well, and just so everybody knows, Dan or Gayle know what I'm going to ask them about. It's always a bit of a mystery, and I love seeing the reactions cold anyway. So today's topic is, the question is short and sweet, which is, am I the asshole for getting my disappointed son a Slurpee?
Aww.
And then there's more, obviously.
Always.
Yeah. Often Gayle and I jump in with yes, no. I want to hear more.
A little harder.
I'm not going to judge this particular book by its cover, because I could see circumstances where it's totally fine, and other circumstances where it's like, no, don't reward him for this.
Yeah. Okay. So this one says, my 8-year-old son had a class trip yesterday. He was excited in the days leading up to the trip, mainly because of the specific attraction he was hoping to see. Unfortunately, that attraction is closed for renovations for the next couple months, so we didn't get to see it. Though there were other things he liked and enjoyed, he was still super disappointed. When he got home, I asked him how the trip was, and he told me how sad he was that he didn't get to see what he was looking forward to. I felt sorry for him. That sucks, I said. And it was a nice day, and we lived 3 blocks from a 7-Eleven, so I offered to take him for a Slurpee, and he agreed. While it didn't make up for everything, it made his day a little better, and I was happy I could do that and spend the time with them with that simple gesture. My husband thinks I was wrong because kids need to learn how to manage disappointment, and I didn't give him that chance. I would agree if, say, I had taken him to Target and bought him $100 worth of toys, or, say, called the place and reamed them out for being disappointing and closed. But this was just a Slurpee. It costs a little over $1. It's close to home. We walked there. I didn't see any reason why this would have been proportional to the disappointment. It was just a small thing to uplift his day. My husband argues that in the real world, you just have to suck it up with disappointment. And I said that's not entirely true, because adults in the real world absolutely treat themselves to minor things when they have a rough day. It wouldn't be an excuse to run up the credit card, but it's not crazy or unusual to get someone a Slurpee or a chocolate bar on a tough day. Anyway, just wondering, who's right here? Am I the asshole, and did I handle the situation badly by getting my son a small treat because he was disappointed?
Oh my goodness. This is a wonderful scenario to think through, because it is a little bit complex. And I initially will admit my hesitation was, I don't love food rewards for disappointments or handling emotional hurt. And yet what this original poster did was created more than a food reward, because it sounds like they walked there, they created a moment in time, they probably talked along the way. You know, she did attend to the child's disappointment and asked about it and was curious. Like, it really did a lot of wonderful things to make it not just about the Slurpee. The Slurpee was this incidental thing that her husband disagreed with. I think this is really interesting.
Yeah. So I don't think her husband's wrong per se, but he's wrong. Like
I was kind of trying to stay away from the judgment for just a minute, Kessler.
Well, okay, but you know, but
explore the psychological aspects of this and each of their perspectives.
Sure. When I say I don't think he's wrong, what I mean is like his point about kids need to learn how to handle disappointment, and that sometimes the answer is the thing is closed or you can't do what you want to do. Sometimes I 100% get all of what he's saying and believe it's accurate. But like that, this was less. I totally agree with you, Gail. This is less about the Slurpee than about the experience.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. They're Slurpees. It's like just sugar water, probably high fructose corn syrup water, and I just but I've also like I have teenagers, and sometimes like the best way to connect with kids is to find something they really like and to just go off. And I'm certainly guilty of going to the Quick Trip or with my now 18-year-old to go for a drive because there's something going on and getting some really horrific food, and sitting outside and eating in the car because it gave us a chance to connect and have conversation. And it's not like she's saying, "Oh, poor baby, you had a tough day. Here's your Slurpee." It's creating the experience, and I have no problem with what she did at all.
Yeah. So you and I both believe that emotions have a purpose, and disappointment is no different. And the experience of the sadness that accompanies disappointment brings people to us. It is that long, sad face that someone notices and wants to help attend to. And so I think from a biological or evolutionary perspective, this child's disappointment is serving the function, which is bringing my parent closer to me and understanding my hurt and sadness. Right. You're not going to fix it with a Slurpee. Mom wasn't trying to fix it with a Slurpee. She was trying to fix it with noticing that this child was having that and creating that closeness. And that's what I love here. Not that she fed it with a Slurpee. It is just incidental. Right. It could have been anything. It could have been a pack of Pokemon cards from Target. Like, who cares? And if we is that moment that I see your sadness.
If we massage the facts, which we like to do sometimes on the show. Well, if we massage the facts and let's say this kid is having a tantrum and mom is saying, "We'll stop by and get you a Slurpee," and she goes to the thing and she hands him a Slurpee in the back seat, and he has a Slurpee, and they just go on their way and don't. Then I'm getting closer to where Dad's saying, giving him a treat in order to deal with his disappointment is wrong. He needs to learn how to cope with it. But Mom created a life experience for him where she connected with him about his disappointment, or at a time when, maybe not even about this point, but at a time when he's feeling disappointed. So it's a totally different scenario.
It really is. And I think part of coping with disappointment, whether you be a child or an adult, is knowing that you have safe, secure people around you that you can share that disappointment with, that you can be honest and you can tell them, I have these feelings about this experience, and they are going to respond. This is, for me, it's a basic caregiver level response for an 8-year-old. And so I come down, mom was absolutely in the right. I agree, though. I don't think Dad was in the wrong per se. Like, I think he's thinking about it in important ways. He just missed the mark.
No, Dad's not an asshole here.
No.
But he totally missed the mark. I think of this as akin to a friend who was going through a really tough time. And I said, "Hey, you want to go grab a beer?" And we sat down and we had a beer together and we talked about, mostly not about the stuff he was going through, but a little bit about the stuff he was going through. And it wasn't about the beer.
No.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It was a local brewery and it was a delicious beer. But it was about the connected experience and sharing what was going on in our worlds. And it was meaningful.
And it was. I
So
mean, I've done something similar. My
yeah,
oldest had a breakup in his first relationship. And so my offer was, all right, pick a pint of ice cream. We're going to sit down. And
yeah,
it wasn't about the ice cream. It was about creating this
we've
experience. Your parents
we
care.
we've all done this, whether it's
Yes.
ourselves and our own
Oh,
disappointments in life, whether it's
yes.
friends. But the key here is it's about the experience
Mhm.
and about the connection with mom, about the
Yes.
connection, and he may remember, like he won't remember the ride, but years from now
Or the
may
Slurpee.
remember that day when he was really struggling, and mom and I walked 3 blocks down, and we got a Slurpee, and we sat on the edge, but we sat on the curb outside and drank our Slurpees and had a good conversation. And I don't remember what the ride was though. Like I could see that, couldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I think the OP's point about, we do this for ourselves. I've had a hard day, so I'm going to fill in the blank with some sort of food or beverage. Or if you're at work and your coworker sees that you're having a hard day, I mean, how many of us have experienced or seen a coworker show up with a treat type coffee just because I know it's been a rough day and I
yeah,
see your disappointment. And that's, I think, one of the most validating things when we are experiencing tough emotions is that someone else sees it and
right.
cares enough to notice. That's all. Don't
Absolutely.
fix it, but being seen and cared for is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that especially when talking about raising kids, recognizing when it is that, how do we connect with kids?
Mhm.
And I think about especially with teen and tween age kids, sometimes those best connection points happen in the car because
Mhm.
we're stuck in the car for 20 minutes getting to whatever we're going to, and we're just shooting the shit.
Mhm.
But it's a great connection point and opportunity to just be in the same space together. That's positive.
Yeah. Yeah. I find dad's response to be a little rigid,
Yeah.
a little too, because I don't know then what dad's response would be in terms of attending to this child. Just suck
Right.
it up, buttercup is not a really great response. And if that's going to be the approach, then we have an emotional miss here. We're really losing an opportunity to teach our kids something about sort of that emotional IQ or sometimes I call it emotional literacy, just being kind of aware and skilled at feelings because,
Right.
that's important just as much as academics. So if dad is of that school, I think it's a miss. I think, his heart's probably in the right place. Don't feed the kid corn syrup and sugar and whatever else just to, put a Band-Aid on some sad feelings. But I think he's missing the overall, kind of most important aspect of this.
Now I do want to flip this just a little bit and say it's clear that mom is giving her like it's something she said along the way. And Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. She says, I didn't feel like giving him this little treat was, so like there's definitely an agenda here. She didn't post this with a hey, tell me which of us is right and which of us is wrong. There's definitely I want support from the internet so I can tell my
Sure.
husband that he's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm reading that in there, and whenever someone's doing that, whether intentionally or unintentionally, we sometimes massage things a little bit because we're seeing it from our own perspective. I
Hmm.
would love to see husbands post about this exact
Oh,
same.
that would be really interesting.
I
Yeah.
know it
Right.
might
No,
be
I
the
mean, it's a good
same,
catch.
and
It
it
might
might be
be.
my kid was screaming and crying the whole way home, and my wife just said, "If you stop screaming and crying, I'll get you a Slurpee." And then I don't know. Maybe the facts
Yeah.
are exactly as mom said it. I don't want to necessarily doubt her. We try to take people at face value, and not but and
Mhm.
um,
I love it.
I want to hear the other side too.
Yeah. No,
And we're not going to.
that would be fair is fair. And we unfortunately probably don't get to do that unless somehow we've gotten some comments here.
We
Gail,
do
have
have
we
some
talked about
comments.
and versus but?
Oh, go ahead.
You want to say
I
a
think
few
we have
words
talked
about?
about and versus but. I talk about it in my clinical office a
Yeah,
lot. Right.
share.
Okay, so for me, when people say but, the word is by definition subtractive. It takes away from, I love my husband, but he didn't bring me coffee yesterday. Like it diminishes, right? I don't know. Like it feels like it takes away from something. Or versus and is literally, you know, from a mathematics perspective, it's additive, and so we're adding to the experience. You know, I love my husband and he forgot to bring me coffee yesterday. There's an opportunity for some gentleness there, right?
Yeah.
Like it rounds out the story, it makes it more complete and full, as opposed to having that more negative edge.
I remember this training thing I did like in some corporate thing 40 years ago, 30 years ago, where they called that the all negating but.
Ooh,
Because yeah, isn't that good?
Mhm.
Everything you say before the but now becomes the exact
Yes.
opposite.
Which is
You
why
know,
you don't apologize with a but,
right,
right? I'm
Because
really sorry, but like then that means you're not
oh
sorry,
yeah,
right?
I'm really sorry, but da 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 means
Mhm.
I am not fucking sorry at all.
Right, right.
And so, I am constantly, and I know you do the same thing when we're working with couples. It's like no buts.
Yeah. Oh,
I will
and
admit I
they're
have to do it
hard.
myself.
They're really hard to strike from your vocabulary. I still am aware of my own rule, and I
Mhm.
struggle against it sometimes. And I have to be really thoughtful when I give an apology, especially to my children who know this, because the moment that enters in, you're like, oh, yeah,
So
no,
putting you on the
I don't
spot.
mean that. Let me back up. Let me try again. And I think it is fair in those cases to say, kind of do over. Can I try again? Because I know that was not good.
So you admit it. I'll admit to doing this in my own discussions with kids or spouse, being like da button go, oh
Yep.
shit. Let me start again. Let me start again.
Yep.
Da-da-da-da. And
Yes.
because I really want to emphasize that it's not the first part doesn't go away because of what I'm saying in the second part.
Yes. Yeah.
You
Anyway,
know,
so that's our little riff on but versus and. Michael, I think you were going to jump in about some comments.
Well,
yeah, and then I overrode.
I was going to ask you
Yeah.
before I tell you about what the internet had to say. I think not to defend the dad, but like thinking of other possibilities, how he might be motivated, I could imagine a scenario where these two parents have had rules around food consumption in terms of sugar and that kind of thing. And so, if you were trying to find a way to comfort the child without food, what are some things that you would think would kind of work in that place? She for whatever reason is connecting to the Slurpee, and this is just a small sweet treat, whatever, it's fine. But there's got to be something else that you could do, not food related, because you guys both talked about quality of time. So like, if not food, what else would you substitute for?
Oh, pick a
Well,
board game.
yeah, I think it's like the classic. I remember learning this when doing some learning theory stuff early on. The reward is whatever the person wants to do.
Hmm.
Whatever their preferred activity is. If your preferred activity is a
So I
bowl to
prefer to go get a Slurpee.
sure, sure.
But that's not consistent with in this massaged version of the facts. That's not consistent with
Yeah,
these parents' choices.
if
So
we
then
can
what?
find sorry.
Hmm, hmm.
No, if we can find a preferred activity or preferred choice thing that's not Slurpee related, that
Mhm.
would be the answer to this, to that question. Is there, what is the thing that the kid wants to do? Is it playing a, I'll play that video game you've been wanting to play with you for a while. I'll watch that show you've been wanting to watch. I'll play that game that you want to play. We'll go on a bike ride around the neighborhood. Whatever it is that the kid really likes, you want to find that preferred behavior. But preferably, what I like about the Slurpee over some of those other choices is that they walk there,
Yeah.
and that
And
slows
what I
down.
like about it too is it slows it down, right? Creates the experience. And from a monetary standpoint, there's little investment here. Mom's point is it was just over $1. If you were to then ask the child, okay, so we're not going to do something food related. A lot of times we jump to them buying the child a trinket or a toy of their choice, and that starts to get more expensive more quickly. You have more stuff in the house. Lots of parents are, in a really, I think, good position to say I have too many things. And so
Right.
we don't need just more things in the house. I think that's even just more of an opportunity for a Band-Aid than this experience with the Slurpee. So like for
Right.
me, the Slurpee hits that just right note. But if you didn't have that as an option, I definitely would be choosing an activity of the child's choice. And I would probably make it really clear that it's an activity.
There's another element here, though. One thing that seems to be true, and listeners, if I'm wrong, please tell me. But every culture I've ever heard of, and I know this is like way extreme, we nurture with food. Like every culture has the equivalent of the feeding frenzy in the church basement after a funeral. It's like after a bad thing, we get together and we eat. We eat to celebrate as well.
Right.
But
We
like
eat to
food,
celebrate, we eat to mourn.
is like, if you think about, every celebration seems to have a food attached to it. Every sad event has a food attached to it. So like, it's not so out of line to to connect with people over food, which can be a bit of a nurturing thing. Now we have to be careful about it, obviously, because it can become overly used. And I think that's Dad's concern here. But I don't, and well, no, but I don't think Mom's concern, or Mom's, what Mom did, fits that concern of overusing food. Because we so frequently connect around food.
We do.
If you have friends over, you're going to feed them.
Right.
If you had a sad event, you're going to feed people. If you have a happy event, you're going to feed people. You know, you want to welcome people to the neighborhood, you bring them food.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
So
it's completely normative response.
So we're going to render a verdict here.
I think we already have, haven't we?
Yeah, Mom's not the
Talked around
asshole.
it. We've talked around it a lot.
Yeah, Mom's not the asshole, and Dad, like, I don't think he's an asshole. I don't even think he's mildly dickish. I just think that he doesn't get it, and needs to give this more thought from a different perspective.
Yep. I'm going to say no assholes here. Again, Dad just had a little bit of a swing and a miss, but like not even enough to say he sucks.
That's a good way of putting it. Dad had a swing and a miss. So Michael, what did the internet say?
Well, I'm gonna flip it really quick. I'm curious, what do you think the internet said? You obviously have, ingested the internet for many years based on what we generally get from them. What do you think
the internet's so damn
was?
unpredictable. We've had times where we have been way off from what the internet said. Like, I would love to think the internet agreed with us, because I love it when I'm agreed with.
Yeah, I actually listened to one of our podcasts yesterday in the car, and I'm completely blanking on the topic. Oh, the donut one. Where Gayle and I were like, absolutely, it's this way, and the internet just like shit all over our perspective, and everyone disagreed with us, and we're like, I'm still thinking that they're wrong and I'm right. I can't predict what they're going to say, but I would like to think that they're going to see it the way we do.
Yeah, they were. I don't think I found anybody on there who said that the mom was the asshole at all. They were all not the asshole. The one thing that I think I should have anticipated, but I was not expecting, was how much they piled on the dad. And they were just like, your husband must have had a terrible childhood and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And then like ripping him a new one, which, knowing the internet, like I should have seen that coming.
Yeah.
There were two responses that I thought were worth reading that I thought I would share real quick, which is, one said, not the asshole, your kid did learn how to deal with disappointment. He had to process his feelings about not seeing the attraction, and he talked to you about it. What your son learned is that he can always count on you to be an attentive ear when something is wrong in his life. And while you can't fix the whole world for him, you'll at least try to make it a little better.
Okay, can you just what was that person's username? Because it's often stuff like, like fart blocker 69420, that's like, like, thanks fart blocker 69420. So like, who comes up with these brilliant, insightful? That was terrific. Probably as good as better summary than I had in this. So what's the what that guy's username was, or gal's username was?
I just looked it up. So it was trouble walking.
Oh, that's
sorry.
No. It's disappointing. I was hoping for something wilder than that, but thank you.
And then the other one was, you're exactly right. As adults, we do treat ourselves when we have a rough day. We indulge in dessert or a glass of wine. We watch garbage television. We sometimes indulge before what we predict will be a rough day by treating ourselves to Starbucks or favorite breakfast, by doing something small like getting a Slurpee. You taught your son how to give himself a quick pick-me-up without going overboard. So yeah, and lots of people weighed in with like, it's just a fucking Slurpee, like ease up and whatever. So
yeah, I think again, where father isn't completely wrong is that we don't want to overuse this. But I'm going to be taking a kid to college on Wednesday, and I think there's a really high probability that I'm going to get myself a donut on the way back home. And I don't really think me eating donuts as a nearly 60-year-old man is a great idea. But I'm probably going to get a donut or something really bad for me on the way home, because and if I did that every day, it'd be problematic. But if I do that this week, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. The one thing I was surprised that nobody mentioned, that like I was trying to think through like what would I do that would be non-food related. And with our teenagers, I like going for walks with them and being able to talk and kind of process and that kind of thing. So the walk part of it works. With an 8-year-old, it's a little bit harder because they're so much more immediately driven. But like one of the things I would have liked to have done is call the place and find out when the attraction was going to be open and then make plans, like put it on the calendar, like we're going to
Yeah.
go here to see it then or whatever. But anyway.
Right. Because what Dad missed is that the reward here wasn't the Slurpee.
Right.
The reward was the walk with Mom and the support and caring. That was the reward. And I'll give that that's good all day long.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
Agreed.
thank you both for another riveting debate and a glimpse into the collective conscience of the internet forums. Remember, morality is often shades of gray and not just black or white, or Slurpee or no.
Slurpee or no. I often reflect on how strange some of these are, but this is not strange. This was incredibly human and I think a really common parenting experience. So thank you for sharing this with us.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Please follow and share Veritas Views on any of our podcast platforms with your neighbors and friends, and always stick around through the credits for the bonus conversation.
You can follow Dr. Dan Kessler at Dr. Dan Kessler and Dr. Gayle MacBride at Dr. G. MacBride. Oh, and you can find them both at veritaspp.com. Credits. Tickling the Ivories, Matthew Reddington. Art, production, and design, bringing this show together with flair and finesse, Michelle Love. Recording and editing, turning chaos into something worth sharing, Michael MacBride. Intro, outro, I'm Kelly Buttrick, a VO talent who just happens to be Dr. MacBride's cousin. Cats, CJ, Linus, Sadie, and Griffin. Hosting by whomever lost the coin flip. Interruptions by all their children. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapist-client relationship. If you believe you may be experiencing a mental health issue, please seek the assistance of a qualified mental health professional. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call or text 988 from anywhere in the U.S. to be connected to Crisis Mental Health Services.
Thanks for listening. As promised, here's that bonus conversation.
Dan, you have a bonus conversation for us.
I do. I have a question for
I'm
you.
excited.
I disclosed my I'm on my way back from dropping the kid off to college, and I'll probably get myself a donut or honestly, it may even be like a thing of fries, or like at Wendy's where they have the fries, you can dip it in the Frosty,
the Frosty. Yeah, that's classic.
So it'll probably be like either a sweet treat or savory, but something I normally don't let myself get, What's your, I had a shit day or I'm having a tough time and I need a little, I just want a little something to kind of is there something like that for you, Gayle?
Well, I think not a realistic option on the regular, but I'm just gonna warn you up front, keep your head size in check here for a moment, because one of the loveliest treats that I really enjoy is when you make an old fashioned. You have nailed that, my friend, and I really do enjoy it. Now, that's not something I typically have when I have a bad day, but you were asking about treats, and so for me, that's a treat. I don't get it often, and I often swing and miss when I make it myself.
I was thinking, but my thought, you might say just bourbon straight, but.
Well, yeah, bourbon and I have
I want to be
relationship as I age.
I want to be clear.
Doesn't enjoy it.
A bourbon, not
a bourbon.
Bourbon.
Right.
There's a difference between a bourbon and bourbon. So I don't want to cast any aspersions here on your use of alcohol.
Fair. But that's where I think that old fashioned is really a treat. It's an old fashioned made by somebody else. It creates an experience and connection.
And that is far more important. So Michael, you can take out the part about me saying she'd have a bourbon if you think it's not, or if Gail doesn't like it, please feel free. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I see what you're saying there is it's something a little bit special done by someone else, which can feel a bit nurturing.
Yes. Yeah. And taken care of because I'm not making it myself.
Right. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Michael, for bringing us another really, really, really cool discussion. and looking forward to whatever we have next week.
We love hearing from you, so please review us on Apple, Spotify, or, well, wherever you're listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review, like, and follow. Also, give it a share. This helps us reach more listeners.